right, everybody. Probably had an echoey beginning there, didn't you? Sorry about that. I just got to get this sorted out pretty soon because obviously these audio issues continue to plague me. It's not right. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. Whenever updates come, they kind of throw a monkey wrench into the way things are. That beautiful balance that one achieves when they've tweaked all the settings and everything as it should be is as it should be. And then Microsoft gives me a blast of some kind of update. And then the next thing I know, the sound drivers are all wrong and everything is sideways. And sometimes it's the applications that update and screw things up, which is the case for this sound issue. So I'm still trying to track it down. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm doing the best I can, but welcome everybody to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. These are the Night Terrors. These are our ghostly encounter nights. They are about hour-long shows, a little shorter than our longer shows. Last night's show, my God, did you guys pay attention? Some of you, most of you, I hope all of you were here, but I know many of you were anyway. We had a phenomenal show last night with Bobo. It was a great discussion. It's just one of those talks that I mean, I swear to God, it was scheduled for 2 hours. It's always 2 hours on a Wednesday. I know hour one went okay. Hour two went fast. But how the hell we got to hour three, I have no idea. I swear to God. We went, we took a quick break, came back, and I thought we were maybe 15 minutes. And suddenly Don says, God, we've been at this for 3 hours. And I was like, what? It went that quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Now, here's the thing. I think that's really due to you guys. All of the amazing participation we had last night, the fantastic questions via phone calls and through the chat. It was phenomenal to be able to pick his brain, and you guys were a big, huge part of that. So thank you to all of you who contributed in that manner and participated and made that happen because, if you guys hadn't called in and been part of the show, it still would have been a great discussion, but you guys made it phenomenal. So thank you so much for being a part of that. If you have not seen that episode, please check it out in the archives, and it should be posted on the main page of our YouTube channel. And, you can see it there, but man, it was a great show, great talk, and it was great to meet the guy. I mean, he's just a genuine, sincere person, and it showed. I mean, he's not an egotist. He's not somebody that's beating his own chest and talking about how great he is, even though he's been around the world. He's been on many shows regarding this subject of Bigfoot, and yet he's just like some guy you'd meet at the hardware store and start BSing with. It's just really cool. So I really had a great time with him, and thank you to all of you who are part of that. If you didn't see it again, check it out on our page. It was great. So throughout the course of our show tonight, of course, the phone lines will be open if you want to call in and be part of the discussion. I'd love to hear from you. The number is 720-923-0500. 720-923-0500. Doing the hand motions, that helps me. That's kind of my metronome. All right, guys, so without any further ado, I guess we're all set. Get into some of these ghostly encounters and see what the hell's going on out there. So I hope you're ready, because it's time for bed. All right, Joe, thank you. I appreciate that. I see that you sent the email. Perfect. Cool. I'll send you what information. I don't know if you listened to the whole show, but some of the information came through when Nase called in. He had some feedback for you. So you may want to actually check with Nase, Cannabis Resolution, if he comes up in the chat, if you get a chance to talk to him, because he's kind of from that neck of the woods, and he can probably steer you as well. But anyway, got stories pulled up for you. I just got to remember what to do here. It's like... I don't know. Sometimes I wonder what I'm doing. That's kind of normal, though, ladies and gentlemen. Kind of normal. So I got some stories pulled up for you guys. Hopefully they'll be good and intriguing stories. And the first one I've got for you is from Kansas. That reminds me about last night. He's like, there's only one place we all agreed on that sucked. That was Kansas. and he did qualify that. God. He did qualify that afterwards. He said it had to do with the weather. During their stay there, it was all cold and rainy and horrible for the whole time they were there filming. So I can't blame him. I guess it doesn't matter where you are. If you're getting cold and rained on all the time, it's not going to be a good time. But anyway, this is from Kansas. It has to do with haunted places. So let's see what's going on in these haunted places in Kansas. It says, I've had a few run-ins with unexplained phenomena. My palate, it's not moving like it should. With unexplained phenomena in the past, but I've always just ignored these things and just looked the other way. This has all changed since I moved into my new home. The house is a little run down when me and two of my friends actually moved into it. So we started remodeling right away. We had lived in the house for maybe 3 months without anything happening. And then we stripped the wallpaper off in the living room. On the old paint under the wallpaper was a single child-sized brownish red handprint. Well, we really didn't think much of it at the time and simply just painted over it. But a few days later, we noticed that the handprint was still visible through the primer and 2 coats of white. Well, we tried painting over it 3 more times, and it still showed through. We eventually just painted the room a dark brown to hide it. But after the handprint was covered, weird things started to happen. We have a book about World War II on our coffee table, and this book is always closed. But all 3 of us started to notice that even if we closed the book right before we left, when we got home, it would be open to a map of Europe. We now just leave the book open to that page and the lights start coming on by themselves. My girlfriend stayed alone in the house one night, and I ended up having to leave a conference and come home because she called me panicking. The lights in the basement and the first floor kept turning on and off by themselves. She would come down the stairs and turn them all off and go back upstairs, look back, and they would be all on again. Yeah, that's not good. Things falling off of tables, loud thumps and bangs in the night. Things have been happening that seem like someone really wants our attention. One night I was doing the dishes when a light fixture fell from the ceiling onto my floor. I've been there. I've had that happen to me. That's a personal experience for sure. I went in and got a stepladder and put it back into place. Mine, I couldn't do that. But as I walked back onto the kitchen, the fixture fell again. I got back on the ladder, fixed it again, making sure it was secure. And right as I was sure it was in place, without thinking, I said, "You'll have to do better than that to scare me." And right as I said that, a spice rack in the kitchen fell off the wall and landed about 6 feet away, making a really loud bang. I immediately said, "Well, that worked." Yeah, I mean, you're going to ask them to up the game. I guess if they're serious about it, they're going to up the game. These things all happened these happenings have always been done by an unseen force until recently. I got out of bed in the middle of the night, just to get a drink in the kitchen, and I noticed as I walked by the basement door that the pull string light in the basement was on. Well, I didn't really feel brave enough to go into the basement and turn it off, so I just let it be and went in the kitchen. And as I walked back from the kitchen, I noticed the light was off in the basement and that the door to the spare bedroom across from the basement door was cracked open. I looked into the room to make sure that no one was in the house, and the room was empty, so I closed the door, headed back up to my bedroom. Halfway down the hall, I hear the spare bedroom door creaking back open. I turned around and saw what looked like a shadow of a small girl run from the bedroom into the basement. I freaked and ran back to my room, and since then, both of my roommates have seen the shadow small girl in and around the spare bedroom and in the basement. I don't feel threatened by whatever it is here, but it just seems to want to be acknowledged. I just wanted to share these stories with all of you. I'll keep you posted on any new developments since I don't know things will be stopping anytime soon. And there was never another posting by that person, so maybe that was the acknowledgement. Maybe that was just by telling the story was the acknowledgement that little spirit needed. And again, I say that tongue-in-cheek because we don't know. Just because you see a little child spirit is not necessarily that you're dealing with a little child spirit. I don't think they have any trouble appearing however the hell they want to. And they want to appear as a little kitten, they can. Or if they want to appear as a Yeti, they probably can, It's hard to say, but weird stuff for sure. Here's another one, another story, and this one is coming from Ohio, and this one sounds like a little darker. This one might be a little freaky, so buckle up on this one. It has to do with demons, possessions, and exorcisms. Eesh, this is not good. When I was younger and my middle sister was still sleeping in a crib, my mom and dad moved us into a house with my grandparents in Solaraine Township, a suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio. The house was large and beautiful with a huge backyard and a really large tree in front of the house. Well, being a child at the time, I was in awe when we first moved in. It was the first real house that I'd ever lived in. Coming from a poor family, we only ever lived in really small apartments. We hadn't moved outside of my school district at the time, so there was no real trauma that could explain my experiences in that house. And nothing can explain my family's combined experiences. Let me begin my story with the introduction of all the members of my family that lived in that house. My mother, my dad, my younger sister Gabby, my grandmother and grandfather, and my uncle David. And this is kind of a longer story, so we're going to get through this, though. The first experience that I personally remember was the sudden illness of my younger sister Gabby. As I said before, she was still in diapers. Within a week of moving into this house, she grew very ill. It was distressing, as I shared a room with her, and she would cry nonstop all day and all night long. The poor child never did sleep. And when she did, it wasn't for long. My family has always been very religious, raising us kids in church every Sunday, and always teaching us to love the Lord and to live our lives for Him. We had many pictures of Jesus around our house, as well as crosses and other Christian symbols, and even so, there were no such form of protection for what was about to happen to our family. And none of us would ever be the same afterwards. One evening, before my mom had fallen asleep, she was sitting in her bed with my dad, who had fallen asleep. She was reading her Bible, and she closed to look. She said, well, she closed to book, it says, but I think she closed it to look, and glanced towards the floor. She was obviously stressed out over the fact that my younger sister, her baby at the time, has had no breakthroughs in her illness. No doctor could figure out what was plaguing the child, and my mother was growing more noticeably helpless every day. I could tell that she was very sad, and so could everyone else around her, so she began to pray her nightly prayers, and I can remember that during this time, she had been saying, "Dear God, please cast out the spirit of sickness from my child, and make her healthy again." I assume that her prayers remained the same this night, so as they had been for many months, and as she was saying these prayers for my baby sister, she heard a noise that made her look up, but not cease in her praying. She looked down the hallway, and I promptly turned over. She looked down the hallway towards our room, mine and my sister's, and at this point I was awoken by the sound of our door creaking. I promptly turned over, thinking it was my mom, not wanting to get in any trouble for being awake. As the door creaked open, I heard slow footsteps, and I giggled to myself, again thinking that this was my mom, checking on us, trying not to wake us. From this point in the story, it's my mother's experience, but she's told me about it so many times I can recall it as my own. As my mother stared down the hallway, praying for God to cast out this spirit of sickness from my sister, something very large moved slowly out of our doorway and into the hall. She couldn't believe her eyes and tried to smack my father to waken him, but he didn't even roll over. As this came into her full view, my mother realized that this was no human being. Her nostrils were overloaded with an overwhelming smell of rotting meat. Whatever this thing was that she saw, we believe it was a demon, moved around to face her. It stood up to its full height, and as my mom remembers it, it was tall enough for its head to brush the ceiling. Its eyes were flashing and bright, red eyes. She describes this demon as having pieces of its flesh hanging off. It began walking towards the front door very slowly, but still staring my mom directly in the eyes. She prayed softly, but no noise escaping her lips. As the demon neared the front door, It laughed at my mother. Its voice was deep and not of this world. And as suddenly as it had come out of our room, the demon opened our front door of our house and left. My mother, being scared out of her mind, ran into our room and woke both me and my sister, and we slept in her room with her and my father for nearly a month. Afterwards, she told my father, and he did not believe her at all. When she told my grandparents, my grandma got a very concerned look on her face. She called the pastor that ran the church that we attended, and being a kind man, he agreed to come and bless our house. My sister and I were sent to stay with my aunt while the priest was there, so I'm not quite sure what happened, and my family has never told me. All I know for sure is the blessing not only didn't work on the entities that possessed our home, but it angered them severely. Part 2 will come shortly. Thank you for reading it. I hope no one thinks we're crazy. When I can work out exactly how to put the many experiences I have into words, I will post more. This sounds like there's a part 2 here. So in the spirit of continuity, let's read part 2. And this is, again, from Ohio, same author. It says, I was always felt like I was different from my friends and classmates in some way. I never realized why until I began high school. I met someone that made me feel as though I could talk about my personal experiences with, and she shared hers with me as well. It was a very freeing experience, but this is a story for a different time. But there were a couple of things that happened to me in this house that were my experiences and mine alone. Pictures would turn upside down on walls and stay that way until I called for someone to come and see. Not only pictures, but crosses, which I feel now were a very evil thing for the spirits or entities to do. Obviously most people recognize that the inverted cross is considered to be a satanic symbol or an evil symbol, like contrary to the symbol of suffering and redemption. But in truth, I don't know why that is, because the cross of St. Peter was upside down, because he didn't want to be crucified in the same manner as Christ, because he didn't think he was worthy. So the upside down cross should signify that, but I guess the dark things only have so many things to work with. So, but anyway, 2 experiences in particular are very vivid in my memory. The first was on a night right after my baby sister was moved out of my room and into her own. At this point, I was used to being alone in my room at night, and I loved the fact that I finally had my own room. I would sit up all night with a flashlight and read books under my blankets, careful not to disturb anyone, and making sure to silently click off the flashlight and roll over if I should hear any footsteps outside my door. I had a giant net across one corner of my ceiling filled with stuffed animals that I had collected over the years, and I'd pick one, usually a bright green triceratops that roared when you squeezed it around the abdomen, and I'd sit with it under one arm while I read. This particular night, I was reading Night of the Living Dummy, an old Goosebumps book, like the original series written by R.L. Stine. I've never had much fear for anything in my life, save the ocean and dolls, but Goosebumps books were never really realistic enough to frighten me, though. So I was under the covers reading this book, and I remember hearing footsteps, so I immediately clicked my flashlight off and rolled over. My door opened and stayed open for a brief moment, but then it closed again. I snickered, having obviously outsmarted my parents again. I tossed the covers around a bit, and I clicked my flashlight back on, excited to finish the chapter I was on before I went to sleep for the night. But as I was finishing up a sentence, my flashlight went out. I sat there thinking, oh no, I can't get up and get batteries. So I tapped the end of it quietly as I could on the palm of my hand, and I was looking down into the flashlight as I tapped it, hoping that it would come back on. But when it didn't, I let out a frustrated grunt and tossed it to the floor. To my surprise, the light came back on. I leaned over and scooped it up off the ground, careful not to tumble out of bed, for fear of alerting my parents. If I had known what was about to happen, I would have happily plopped my bottom right to the ground as hard as I could. From this point, I remember hearing someone whispering near the wall off the foot of my bed, thinking to myself, it's just your imagination. I peeked from under the covers to reassure myself that I was just imagining things. I was shocked and terrified to find two men, very solid, standing at the foot of my bed. Well, I dropped my flashlight on the ground and my jaw nearly fell as far, and I thought to myself, someone's broken into our house, and they're going to take me. I tried to yell for my parents, but all I could manage were some dumb-sounding, weak squeaking noises, which didn't alert my parents, but it sure alerted these men that were in my room. Their whispering stopped, and it was like they looked towards me, but through me. And I tried so hard to see what they looked like, and I can remember clear as day, both were very tall, with no faces, no eyes, and they were completely silhouetted. I suppose, looking back, the best explanation I can come up for them would be shadow people. One of them stretched his hands towards me, reaching all the way over my bed and towards my face. And as he leaned across, I think he bumped into my stuffed animal net because one of the corners fell free and over half of the toys fell onto my bed. The quote-unquote man touched my face and whispered to me, "It's all right, child." At this point, I'm sweating bullets and crying silently. I was totally petrified, and I could not make a sound. It was like something had hold of my vocal cords, but wasn't choking me. I did the only thing I could think to do. I threw my book in their general direction and began squeezing the living hell out of that Triceratops stuffed animal that actually made noise. My door flew open and my mom ran in just as the men disappeared. She saw them too, but only for a brief second. My mom was a wreck, asking me why I didn't yell for her, and how long were they here, and this and that, making the situation much worse for me. I know now that she was so afraid that they were going to hurt me, that she snapped at me. This was all a little insane. We still to this day have no idea who they were or why they wanted to visit me, but they were there and solid enough to send my stuffed animals from the ceiling to my bed below. The second experience was much like the first, with several key differences. I was sleeping in the same room, alone, and was abruptly awoken by a crashing sound. Being terrified that it was something else come to visit me in the night, I pulled my blankets over my head and I heard a rumbling or growling sound, again near the foot of my bed, but I didn't dare look. The growling grew louder, and again I couldn't bring myself to pull the covers low enough to even peek at whatever it was that was there. I figured if I ignored it, it would just go away on its own. This was until I began to feel like someone or something was stepping on my bed. I could hear the growling and the bed creaking downwards as this thing made its way, very slowly, towards me. By the time that this thing was completely over the top of me, I was crying. I moved my blanket down slowly, very slowly, to glimpse what was keeping me from getting away, and I opened my eyes, and what I saw standing over me was like nothing I had seen in real life or on television. And I was an avid Animal Planet and Discovery Channel fan. The best way I know how to describe this creature is like a huge dog, possibly a wolf, with the head of a lion, mane and all, and it was nearly the size of my bed. I only looked at it for a second before I let out the loudest, most blood-curdling scream that I have ever in my life, even to this day. This creature then put one paw on my right shoulder and one on my forehead, forcing my eyes to remain open. I screamed again, and I felt a sharp pain over one eyebrow and felt something very warm and wet falling down my face. I screamed again, and this time I screamed my mother's name. And about 15 seconds later, as the door opened, this thing disappeared. My mom did not see it this time, but what she did see startled her greatly. I had a cut above my eye, right over my eyebrow. To those of you that know anything about facial injuries, you know that they bleed a ridiculous amount of comparison to the size and the deepness of the cut. There was blood on about 65% of my pillowcase. There was a noticeable scar today. And as I grew quite a bit, and it disappeared with time, but it was definitely there. And there was definitely a weird wolf/lion standing over me on my bed, staring down like it wanted me for dinner. I've never seen this creature again, in life or in stories. And just for closure's sakes, my mom didn't yell at me this time. I had blood all over me. She was madder that she didn't come the first time I screamed. Thanks for reading. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Horrible. Horrible situation. I don't know. A situation like this almost sounds like there's maybe a portal going on in this location. I think that portals are mostly utilized by darker, lower vibrational entities. I don't think that the higher vibrational entities necessarily need portals. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know why I think that. It's just what comes to me intuitively about it. But, I think if there's a portal there, it could explain some of the weirdness going on in that house and some of the variety of things going on in that house, in that situation. Because if there's an active portal, things are coming and going all the time. And, it's unfortunate that people happen to live in that same place. Now, how do portals open? Well, they might be done intentionally. They might be done unintentionally. They might be something traumatic that popped them open. There might be somebody screwing around with things that they had no idea what they were doing, which could be in the form of dark practices, a bad seance, possibly a Ouija board, things like that. Could be someone wanted to cause them problems. Maybe there's somebody that didn't like them and cast that on the family. I don't know. It's certainly tragic. It's certainly scary, and it's unfortunate that kids are, have to deal with things like that sometimes. I'm just really glad they had the support of the parents, or at least the mom, in a manner of speaking. Like, obviously your kid's dealing with two shadow people. You don't want to come in screaming like, why didn't you call me sooner? It's like, yeah, that's not the right place to start that whole conversation. Let's not start with blame and then work our way backwards. Let's start with, oh my God, are you okay? And then work forwards. So, that's tough. But that's the scary part. It's like, once those things are open, you got to get them closed. And maybe that's why a simple blessing didn't work, a simple house blessing, or even a cleansing in those kind of situations. If those portals aren't dealt with, well, something's going to come back through. I mean, the doorway is still there, right? So it's certainly concerning. But again, this story's from 2009. It's a very old story. I'm sure that, this person's much older anyway by the time they wrote this, from when they were a child. So this is, again, much older still. But I don't know, that kind of stuff you never forget. You never move beyond that. I don't know. Ooh, it's MCAT Paranormal Research now. Very nice, brother. Maybe you changed that a while ago. I think you did, didn't you? Sorry, I'm sometimes slow on the uptake here. Thank you for everybody that's come in to be a part of tonight's show. That's always wonderful. I love me some companionship here as I'm doing the portals. Let's find some more stories here for you. I don't know if that one's going to be good or not, but let's see. I'll open about 5 more. We'll see where we end up with. All right. This next one is from Colorado, ladies and gentlemen. It has to do with haunted places. Kind of a longer one. It's a little bit long, but we'll get through it. Because hopefully you're extraordinarily entertained at this point, right? That's the spirit. My friend Heather and I have a problem that whenever we spend time together, some paranormal event seems to happen. Well, this is one of the stories from the summer I spent with her at her new place in Colorado, enjoying the beauty of nature. I'd done several hiking trails, but they had all been rather busy, and it was hard to really enjoy nature when you're on those busy trails. A friend of Heather's, Mike, suggested we do a trail outside his hometown. He said his town was in the middle of nowhere, so we couldn't have to deal with all the summer crowds at the parks and tourist spots. We all thought it sounded great, so we packed up and headed out. We decided we were going to camp for a few days somewhere along the trail just to relax and just take in some nature. So all in all, our trip should last about 5 days. On the trip were myself, Mike, and my friends, James and Heather. After a day and a half of hiking, we found a beautiful, almost level clearing in the slope down on one side that looked down onto the forest below. You could tell by the old cans and the way logs and rocks were moved around in the area that this was an old campsite. So we set up camp there for our couple of days of relaxation in nature. Too bad we really never got a chance to relax. On our first night at around 11 p.m., we were sitting around the campfire telling jokes when Heather says, "Hey, did you guys see that?" And points down the slope at the tree line, and we all just turned and looked, but there was nothing there. I wasn't even sure what we were looking for, and Heather just said she saw a light. And sure enough, about that time, a light like one from a flashlight starts shining through the trees, but it's moving rather quick and is jumping up and down like someone is running with it in their hand. James jumps up and yells, "Hello, is somebody there?" Down at it, and the light immediately went off. Heather and I decided it would be smart to sleep in the boys' tent that night. I'll bet. Sorry, I just got a text message. My apologies. Just had to make sure it was nothing emergencies. Hello, is somebody there? And the light went off. It'd be smart to sleep with the boys. I'll bet it was. Sorry. All right. The next morning, James and Mike went down the slope to see if there was another camp down there. And when they came back, they had with them an empty backpack and had found on a rock just behind the tree line. The backpack was weather worn and was literally falling apart. We all decided that we would stay in one more night, and then we had nothing to worry about. Some camper had probably just forgotten their backpack a few years ago, and the flashlight the night before was probably just another hiker. To this day, I wish we hadn't stayed. I still have nightmares about that night. We were all having trouble sleeping, so we stayed out by the campfire really late into the night, just talking and laughing. And when Heather suddenly said, "Everyone, be quiet. Do you hear that?" So we all went quiet, but none of us were able to hear anything. Heather's eyes were wide open and her face had gone pale in the firelight. I asked her what she heard, and she said she could hear a woman crying. Still, none of us could hear it, so we thought she was just pulling our chains. James and Mike start laughing and say things like, "Good one," and "Nice try." Yeah. And then we all heard it. Clear as can be, the sound of a woman crying. James and Mike were both police officers, so without hesitation, they both jumped up and grabbed flashlights thinking they might be hearing a lost hiker. Heather and I, both unable to move, something didn't seem right about that noise that we were hearing. James and Mike headed down the slope where the crying was coming from, as me and Heather sat trying to comfort each other. They had been gone for about 10 minutes, and we could hear them yelling, "Hello, please tell us where you are." When we heard both of them begin screaming, and maybe 2 minutes later, they both sprinted back up the slope to the campsite. Both of them were so out of breath they couldn't talk, and Mike started to throw up in the bushes next to the camp from overexertion. They both said, "Hurry up, we're leaving now," and started taking down the tents. Heather and I didn't ask any questions, so we were just too scared to talk. We just packed everything we could and started back down the trail in the middle of the night as quickly as possible. When the sun finally came up, I got up the nerve to talk and asked James what had happened. He said that Mike and him had followed the crying down into the trees. They couldn't find the person who was crying even though they had searched the area where the sound was the loudest. Then as they were about to come back to camp to call for help, they passed the rock where they had found the backpack, and next to it was a girl sitting with her head in her knees crying. And they said it was weird because she was wearing a big red winter jacket and a black stocking cap, but it was in the middle of summer. They were about 20 feet away when James asked if she was all right. Did she need help? He said she stopped crying, pointed deeper into the forest, and then disappeared. And this is when Mike and James screamed and ran back to camp. At the time, we were all so scared that we really didn't have time to think about things. we were all pretty sure that whatever it was trying to get us to go where it pointed. We've discussed going back there and trying to go the way it pointed, but we were unsure if it just wants us to find something or if it has bad intentions for us. Wow. The old ghostly camper. Initially what I'm thinking is that something happened to that hiker and maybe she just wanted her remains found, to be properly buried or something. I don't know. It's hard to know. Could it be the trick of something dark and sinister? Yeah, I guess, but that's a tough one. That would be a tough one, but it's almost like it was pointing like, I'm sad. I'm obviously, something happened to me and that's where the rest of me is. I don't know. Could be right. Could be wrong. Just speculation, of course, but weird. I don't know. I've never seen something like that. Thank God. That would reset your, reset your paradigm in a hurry. All right. Next one is coming from Pennsylvania. How you guys doing out there? Everybody doing good? Thank you for everybody that's here with us. If this is your first time on the show, thank you very much. These are our Ghostly Encounters stories. They happen on Sunday and Thursday nights. Then we have 2-hour shows on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday nights. So if you're new to it, that's what we're doing right now. And these are only about an hour shows. But if you like what you're hearing and you want to be alerted to more of this, then please get subscribed. We'd love to have you be part of the family. And hit the bell so you get notified when we go live. But every time we go live on YouTube, it will be 7 p.m. Pacific time, unless there's something unusual going on that I need to come on earlier or wish to come on earlier or later. But for the most part, these are our scheduled shows. So if you like what you're hearing, become part of the portal. Let's see. This one is Pennsylvania. Oh, come on. I don't know if I want this one. It's not overly long. It's another... Well, I should read these because sometimes people are calling it like night hag, sleep paralysis stuff. But then when you read it, it's something that totally doesn't match up to that. So I guess I'll read it. But, these stories get a little redundant. Not in the fact that it doesn't happen, but just in that they're all very much the same. I was laying in bed and I woke up, but I couldn't move. Something pinned me down. There was a dark shadow, et cetera, fill in the blank. And then I could move again, terrified. And that's not me belittling it. It's still a spiritual attack either way. So you still deal with it in the same way you deal with any other spiritual attack. You start cleansing. You do what you can to cleanse your house, protect yourself, find ways to shield yourself from problems. If any of you are dealing with really nasty, like sleep paralysis, try something simple like just sprinkling sea salt around your bed, as a barrier. Hopefully it'll keep anything out if it is indeed something doing it. Again, I don't usually give advice like that because I don't want to ever be responsible for somebody trying something and it doesn't work, or if it starts going sideways. Well, it's probably because of what you told me to do. And it's like, I don't want that. I'm just offering suggestions for what it's worth. I'm no expert. I'm just an enthusiast, been looking into this for years. It might be right. It might be wrong. It's up to you. Follow my advice at your own on your own choice or whatever. I don't know how to say that correctly right now, but yeah. So let's see what's going on with these sleepy night paralysis, old hags attacks. It says, I've been living in the same house for 5 years, and in those 5 years, a lot of paranormal things have happened. Different doors opening fully and then slamming shut. See, that doesn't sound like night terrors at all, or sleep paralysis. While doors that had been previously closed fully, while the doors had been, so they're open and slamming shut when they were previously closed. Okay. An unwelcome guest sits on my sister's bed across from my room, and I sleep day or night. You can actually hear the springs contract. When you hear the springs let go, it's as if a person just got up. And this happens when no one was on the bed, but, it says but, and then period. One time she was fixing her hair standing in front of her dresser, a foot away from her. She just ignored it. I guess that's her way of dealing with it. But I have to say that the most frightening thing that's happened in this house has to be when I was paralyzed while awake. See, that's not sleep paralysis either. It was May 12th, 2009. Before 5:17 a.m., I had gone to sleep at about 3:35 a.m. I have trouble sleeping sometimes, and watching TV doesn't help either, but I finally got to sleep, praying before I laid down. Sometime later, I had a feeling that I had overslept, so I opened my eyes because I didn't want to wake up late, but then suddenly I felt my body get really heavy, so I thought I was just tired. I looked at the window. I saw it wasn't even light outside. I decided to just lay there because my body was still very heavy. I had my blanket over my face and I was cold, and then I realized I couldn't even move my body. No matter how hard I tried, my body painfully tingled every time. Every time I tried. Okay, my eyes shut and all I saw was black and distorted images of gray, black, and white. I panicked and decided I was going to yell so my sister in the opposite room could wake up and come to my room, but I couldn't even open my mouth. I could only move my head sideways, and every time I tried to move, I felt like I was being smothered with a blanket. I could still breathe, but very scarcely. All I could do was hear my thoughts in my mind, so I started saying, "Go back to hell and leave me alone," over and over again. That didn't really work. So I started saying, "Dios es mi salvador, él me salvará," in Spanish. God is my savior, and he will save me. I was very angry by now. I couldn't even move my head without not being able to breathe since I was reading the Bible before I slept. I remembered to say that and the St. Michael verse over and over again. I was beginning to panic and frustrated. I couldn't move a single finger. After a while, the heaviness was no more, but my body still tingled and I felt very weak. It seemed like forever, but it was probably only 5 or 10 minutes. When I finally was able to move and my body stopped tingling, I got up, looked at my clock, and it said 5:17 a.m. When I said a prayer out loud, laid back in my bed, and the only reason I left my room at 5:36 was because I kept hearing footsteps on my ceiling, which is also the roof. I got up and left to go to my sister's room, and she was already awake by now. I told her everything. I became scared after she told me that the exact same thing, except the tingling, has happened to her at least 3 times now. This is my first time and hopefully my last. That's odd. Usually the prayer thing is pretty solid in dealing with this kind of stuff, but that all, it depends. I don't know why it didn't. Okay, so here's another one. This one's from Missouri, and it has to do with haunted places. It's a pretty short story, though, so let's see what's going on here. Just taking a look. Am I missing anything? Anybody saying anything to me? Nope. Okay. I'll continue. That's weird, the whole chart. I don't know what's going on with YouTube, but sometimes in my end, I got this meter that's on screen, and it shows me how many people are here, how many messages are going on, et cetera, et cetera. And right now it said 0. So either I have 0 people watching or something's wrong with this meter. Nope, it came back now. Now there's 61 people here. Okay, well, good. I guess it's working. During technology, I'm really excited because right now I'm using a cable internet, and it's like this. It's like good signal, bad signal, good signal, bad signal. So I've got fiber coming, and it should be installed sometime soon. And that should hopefully take care of all this bandwidth flexing that's going on, because it just really gets screwy. And as the show grows, I want less and less of these kind of problems. So I don't know if you guys saw anything on YouTube, any kind of streaming issue or anything. Was it starting to lag or at all? You have to let me know if it was, but not so sure. All right, so here we go. This is coming from Missouri, haunted places. When I was a little girl, I lived in an old building that my dad turned into our home. We lived downstairs, and there were apartments upstairs, and it was not uncommon to hear strange noises during the day or night. For about a week, my 4-year-old brother would wake up screaming that the monster was going to take him away. Oh, that's terrible. Whether he slept during the day or night, he would wake up screaming the same thing. One night, my mom heard someone running down the hall from where my sister and I slept, so I got up to see if one of us... So she got up and went to see if one of us was sick, and when she got to the door, she saw a white figure coming at her, and it passed her, it lifted up and went around the corner to the bathroom and vanished through the wall. My mom grabbed her Bible and started praying. The next day, our minister came to our house and blessed the house. Since the blessing, my brother stopped having dreams about the monster, but I did. It became a normal thing for me to see things in that house and to have dreams of a little boy telling me when bad things were about to happen. I still have dreams about that old building, and they're never good ones. Even though it's been torn down now, it still haunts me. Sometimes I think that whatever was there followed me. Some good, some bad, but I've learned to live with it as I've gotten older. Yeah, some of that stuff is just due to, the age. I think maybe these people are gifted and are just more aware of that spiritual stuff, but they don't really understand why. But I think that could be it. All right, this one is coming from Kentucky. Kentucky, they make good chicken, though. Finding Bigfoot might not have enjoyed it, but they make good chicken. I'm just saying. All right, here we go. Kentucky. This is a pretty short one. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we still got time for a couple more anyway. So when I was a little girl and my brother was still living with my mom and dad, I, being the youngest, had to have the little room. I hated that room. Scary things would happen that have haunted me for the rest of my life. When I was younger, around the age of 6 maybe, my dad would stay in there with me until I fell asleep. I wanted to sleep with him, but Mom wouldn't allow it. I remember crying myself to sleep every night because I didn't want to stay in that room. I hated it. I would have a horrible feeling of dread and fear every time I stayed in that room. But during the nights, I would wake up to hear a loud bang coming from the closet. I would look around and see what it was, and my closet door would always be open. The only thing I kept in the closet was clothes and some toys, but that's it. Nothing would have caused it to open up and make a loud noise to wake me up. But I do remember it opening and shutting by itself loads of times. It would scare me so bad as to where I would pee myself and sleep with my brother in the other room. It was horrifying. My mom, dad, nor my brother would ever believe me about it. I felt like I was crazy, and I still feel like that. To this day, I can't sleep with a closet open. It sounds stupid, I know, and maybe I'm just a paranoid person when it comes to closets. Any help? It says any help, but it sounds like this person's already an adult. But that doesn't mean you've always coped with that fear, even from childhood. I mean, that stuff doesn't go away necessarily just because you get older. So I guess the help I would say is learn how to protect yourself. There is spiritual attacks, and this is not an esoteric idea. It's an idea of many religions and stuff talk about and warn about spiritual attacks. There are things out there that don't seem to like us very much, and I don't know why. There's obviously there's lots of folklore and ideas as to why that might be. Things don't like us much, but whatever the case, you got to learn how to protect yourself, and that can be prayer. It can be, in meditation. It can be a lot of different manners to protect yourself. Find, someone to cleanse. This house, it sounds like, needed some cleansing in a big way. I do like the idea that whenever you do move into a new place, cleanse it. Before you even stay the first night, go through and cleanse it, push out whatever might be there. And if you do saging and stuff like that, just remember, best rule of thumb is to start one end of the house, and on the other end of the house or upstairs or wherever you're going to end, leave a window open or leave a door ajar wherever you're going to end. And the idea is that as you cleanse through the house, saying prayers, saying mantras, saying whatever it is with sage or whatever medium you're using, incense, and make sure to end at that space. And that, because the idea is you got to give them an avenue out. Now, a lot of people think, why? They can just go through the wall. Well, maybe they can, maybe they can't. Some of the speculation about them going through walls is just that at one point in time, there might have been a door there before during their time. And so to them, that's still their reality, maybe. But you can, push them out, close it, then seal the house. After you sealed it, sea salt's a great thing. It's a really powerful thing. There's a reason that salt keeps coming up in all the lore and legends and practices, not just in, just made up land. I mean, people really do use salt. It's a very powerful medium for helping to keep darkness and low vibrating spirits out. So again, I'm not diagnosing this or telling you how to deal with it for sure, but I'm giving you ideas I would just recommend everybody, if you're worried about this kind of stuff, look into it. Find something that resonates with you. It could be holy water. Could be anointing oils that you use to, anoint your home. And the symbolism is up to you. It's, whatever resonates with you, whatever faith resonates with you. But there's plenty of ways to protect yourself. But it is scary. It's really scary stuff. So I hope this person was able to find the help that they needed in just working through this old stuff. I mean, this kind of stuff doesn't go away, like I was saying, and it can manifest. Like if you're carrying old stress in your body, it can manifest as all kinds of health problems later in life, heart conditions, any number of potential diseases, because we are an energetic being in these human bodies, and so if our energy is all screwed up, our body's going to probably get screwed up as a result of that, because the body is shaped around the soul or the spirit or whatever. But, there's a reason they say that, this is a temple. It's a temple because this is where the spirit is. We're housed in these things, not exclusively, but during our lifetimes. And so it doesn't mean this is a holy place. It just means it's the temple. It's the home of the spirit. That's what a temple is. So I don't know. I'm just spitballing here as I talk, but just some cool ideas. I hope this kind of stuff helps. I don't know. I just kind of spitball this stuff. It's just things I picked up through the years. Again, I've been looking into this stuff since I was young. I had the benefit of being raised around some pretty impressive esoteric people, and they taught me a lot. So I hope that somehow those things can help you guys. And certainly we have a bunch of wonderful people that are involved with the show as well, like Deb and Sean and so many others that help people deal with these kind of things. So if you're dealing with something dark, you don't know what to do, give us a call. Or not a call, but, email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and I can probably put you in touch with one of those people that are willing to help. And we've had a lot of people actually reach out to the show through the years, and I wasn't sure if people would be, interested in that kind of thing, but I'm amazed at how many people have reached out and said, God, I'm dealing with something horrible. Can you help? And, I'll set them up with either Deb or Sean or, sometimes both. And they've helped so many people, and it's really cool. I'm really proud of the fact. I can't take a lot of credit for it, but I can just tell you that these are some wonderful people that have made their gifts available to people that are listening to the show. And I think that's awesome. So anyway, I guess that's going to about wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed this journey through the paranormal portal. All 67 of you that are here watching now. That's great. I'm really honored you guys spent the night with me. I appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, please get subscribed and please follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/paranormal portal radio, and check out our podcast. And you can find us on Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Stitcher, Castbox, Google Play. And there's a whole bunch more. Just whatever you're listening to for your podcasts, we should be there. So take a look for us, and you can find us there. So that's about all I got, though, guys. I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. I'm going to go help my neighbor start her car, because that's the kind of guy I am. I'm always trying to help. So, all right, love you guys. Have a great night. And I'll be back tomorrow night for the Friday night show, 2 hours of the portal. So I hope you'll join me then. 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here on YouTube. So join me. But until then, sweet dreams.